Anyway, only other things I was gonna touch on there. So, I mean, there was a bit of a fun one seconds before we went live. So Jeff Kaplan exited Blizzard, and
Has
uh,
a lot of interesting things to say.
one, announced his new game, Legend of California. Two, talked about the biggest fuck you moment of his career, which was walking into a meeting at Blizzard and basically hearing the exact, the thing we say every single
We will
week.
pantomime a straw man that we've created out of our perception of CEOs and rich people, and it's an unrealistic depiction of a non-human evil entity. We're closer than you'd think.
What ultimately broke me in my Blizzard career was when I got called into the CFO's office, and he sits me down and he gives me a date at the time, which is 2020, and was going to slip into 2021. And he says, Overwatch has to make this amount of money by 2020. And in every year, then needs a recurring revenue of this amount. And then he says to me, if we don't do this amount, we're going to lay off 1,000 people, and that's going to be on you. And that was the biggest fuck you moment I've ever had in my career. It felt surreal to be in that condition. As someone who's worked on a lot of games, made a lot of games, you get in these meetings where they're going, Fortnite has 1,400 people working on it, so if we hire 1,400 people and make it free to play, we'll make that money, right?
I've heard this. I've heard that version of almost everyone I've ever spoken to in the industry, including you, who I think heard it in person.
We have made this quote. Like, we have said quotes exactly like this on this show constantly.
Did you not hear like some financial nerd literally say that out loud?
I need more specifics on the particular one you might be
at the Tomb Raider shit with the multiplayer.
Maybe not that project. I mean, but there's been so much over the years of just the simple basics of, these guys are doing this. They've got this all going on the project. Can't we just emulate that? And in many cases, it's the investors going, why don't you just copy what the competition's doing? Right? It's investors in a lot of cases going, you guys, when are you going to start doing what these guys are doing over here? Clearly it works for them. Right? It doesn't matter who's doing anything or what they're doing or who you hired.
Shotgang86 in the chat reminds us of the perfect engineer's conundrum, which is the phrase 9 pregnant women can make a baby in 1 month. Like, that's how these people fucking think.
So it's just, like, you're talking, and I mean, I don't know what the through line, the plot line of this fucking podcast, it feels like, over years now, has been that the people making these decisions, the brain rot that comes from the greed that makes no fucking sense. Every time you get someone like this who's in a position that can come and describe it behind the scenes or whatever, you're only going to find out 10 years later, 6 years later, about these insane decisions, but they're as bad, if not worse, than you imagine them to be. No matter how hyperbolic you get, it always appears to be like even worse than that, And
I think there's a businessman's sociopathy, like psyop that's gone on in fucking society where, hold on, let me get there, where the rich people are portrayed as heartless, logical automatons, and they go, I don't care what we have to do. The line's got to go up, and they're looking at spreadsheets, and they're figuring out costs, and they're doing all this shit. And like, they don't live in the real world with the rest of us. They're only looking at a spreadsheet. And what most people have to realize is they're not looking at the spreadsheet at all. They're just going off of vibes. It's based off of nothing.
So we sit talking about video games almost in an insular way where you kind of sometimes think it's its own separate space, separate from the rest of what's happening in the market, quote unquote. The same, remember the same.
Like, we do shot calls all the time, and we're wrong all the time. Hey, we have some hits.
You remember the same dudes who were giving out subprime mortgages that faced zero consequences?
Except for that one, yeah.
Right? You remember those people?
He stole from rich people.
Okay. Remember how motherfuckers were suing United Healthcare for not denying enough claims?
I do remember that.
Right? In the wake of, like literally it was, you're not denying enough claims from people, right? Remember how in the fucking Epstein files, he sent Peter Thiel an email that was saying 0% interest rates are too high? Do you remember that?
I didn't know that. I don't even know what that means.
Epstein says to Peter Thiel in the emails, paying them, if they were to be given 0% interest rates, that's too high.
Can you give what?
You should be paying us to exist and to make money.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Interest should be reversed, right? Remember these people? Remember this thought? Yeah. These are the same people making decisions in the industry. They're the same people sitting in these suites making every one of these video game fucking decisions, dude.
You know what
Why the fuck for a second would you think they weren't?
You know what the funnest thing about Kaplan's quote from the CFO is? He goes out of his way to not name this person, but says it's the CFO of Blizzard in 2020. It's like,
and then goes, thankfully they're no longer there.
And it's this very strange thing of like, I just don't want to say their name. I'll just include the position. You know, super weird. Also, I'll give Jeff Kaplan some uppies because they announced Legend of California and then he streamed it for 10 hours.
Oh wow, okay.
It's super early. And I'm like, that's pretty fucking ballsy.
Okay. And then the second thing he said was, if you're complaining about games that you don't play, shut the fuck up. No one cares.
It's interesting that it took this long to hear that from not Nintendo. Do you remember Super Paper Mario?
Mm-hmm.
In which one of the quizzes
go on more message boards online and complain about games you don't play? Oh, fuck. I mean, now listen. We are currently speaking into microphones recorded on the Castle Super Beast podcast.
That's true. We are. It's true. I have at times complained about games I haven't played on this podcast.
An opinion may have been shared about a game that you have not played.
It's possible.
Perhaps more than once. I would never slander you to hold you to that, but I think it might be possible that
I think it's a likely reality.
What I will say is that I definitely, I mean, you've described, I believe you said, you're like, Wooly, the thing is that you're not a natural born hater. And
yeah, you're not a natural born hater.
But there's times where you're like, that heroin, you know, that's a little tingle in my arm. That's, hey, how about that? Right. But realistically, I know that, shit that means nothing to me, I'm not hating on shit that means nothing to me because I'm not even bringing it up, right? Most of the time, I feel like when opinions are had, it's often for something where I care about the thing, if it's a studio that I buy games from and they're going downhill, or if it's a horrible trend in an industry that I care about, that I spend money in, I'm going to have opinions on that thing, right? And I think that, like, there's... You know, I'm sure he's talking about, like, he's announcing his new game and the specifics of you're working on Overwatch. It's the fucking dead center middle of the bullseye target. But I think that the opinions you can have about the things you do care about are extraordinarily valid. And if you are somebody who knows and or cares about that thing and therefore represents the consumer base that they're probably trying to appeal to, what you're saying about that thing is extraordinarily valid and underlined and makes a ton of sense, you know? So if you're talking about it and it's like completely out of your range, wheelhouse, and interest, that's a separate thing from something that is within your wheelhouse of interest, and maybe if you have not played it or so you're talking about it, it's coming from a place of I care about what this overall through line is, be it a trend or a studio or whatever the case. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you know, I think that that's an important distinction. That is not maybe what he was getting at in that quote, but I read it and I was like, okay, true, asterisk.
No, what he's talking about is what I look at a fucking a Resident Evil 9 video on TikTok and I click comments because I want to see what people thought about it, and the top comment is Red Dead Redemption 2 is more realistic.
Sure. Okay. Sure.
He's talking about like
full on,
psycho morons.
Yeah. And there is nothing in life. I mean, admittedly, I just like I can't think of times where maybe having a microphone in front of me gets my opinion out there often enough that I just don't leave comments really anywhere on things that I'm going through or media I'm watching.
Oh, that's my most. I was talking to my chat about that for a really long period, and I was talking about the self-selection process of personalities that leave comments.
But like what I'm getting at here is if I feel like indifference towards something, like you couldn't pay me to drop a comment on that. Because you
picked the wrong idiom.
Sure. I'm just saying that like it's so nothing to me. I don't engage.
Yeah.
I don't engage. I barely engage with things that are relevant to me at times.
Yeah, that's right.
You know? So that's it. That's where I'm at on it, is that like you can be very, very much somebody who is not playing the thing, but care a lot about what thing is pointing at, where thing represents, where thing is going, et cetera, et cetera.